Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Avast. Now, Avast protects your phone and computer against all of the latest threats on the web as you browse the waiver wire and check out the latest NFL highlights and headlines. Here's why we at the Fantasy Footballers love Avast. They are the global leader in security. More than 400 million people trust them to keep them safe on the web and on the phone. And their product is lightweight and won't slow down your computer. So for more information, visit avast.com. That's AVAST.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
It's a trick.
What's
not? It was a trick, not a treat for me.
Oh.
I'm talking Jordan Howard. I mean, it would have been a treat last week when I played him. But this week it was a trick.
We should have known that based on how this week went.
Yeah, based on all the other injuries /
weirdness.
We lived in the upside down for a week.
We did live in the upside down for a week. Thank you, Mike. Welcome back to the podcast. The Fantasy Footballers back again Tuesday, November 1st. Did you guys have a good Halloween?
Did I?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, we did the trick-or-treating. It was fun. The kids had a blast. Neighborhood was jam-packed. I wouldn't have wanted to be someone driving or attempting to get through any street. And, yeah, we had a good time. There's this one guy at the corner of the street that every year he brings out like this huge amplifier and he has like all these effects programmed in and he just kind of says creepy, weird things
kids walk by.
Through the microphone as kids walk by. Yeah. Like, where did my spiders go?
And you know what? You can't stop me from doing it.
I'm not going to. I'm not going to. You've got a voice.
It's not me.
He's not saying things like, you should sign Percy Harvin.
No.
Not that weird.
Okay. All right.
That's the last thing I want in my Halloween bag. Let's put it that way. But yeah, Jordan Howard, what a night.
Oh, what a night.
I did say he'd be the guy to start. And I said the Bears would have a good game. So that's my way of comforting myself in spite of the fact.
Congratulations.
In spite of the fact that no one played Jordan Howard. Here's the headline that I wanted to get out there about Jordan Howard. Congratulations if you played him. I'm not sure congratulations if you own him. Because what you have seen over the last two games is exactly what you will receive the rest of the season. You will receive a hot hand approach by John Fox. If Kadeem Carey, let's say Howard doesn't break a 69-yard run on the second play from scrimmage or whatever it was. If he's struggling for 3 or 4 carries and Kadeem Carey comes in and runs off a few, you're going to see what you saw 2 weeks ago where he goes with the hot hand, Langford, Carey, Howard. Still would love to own Howard. He's the best guy to own. He's the best upside potential because if he does get the hot hand, he has enough talent to do something with it.
Certainly the most talented of the three. I think all three of us would agree with that.
But you have John Fox, and you have to throw cold water on bell cow status, in my opinion, because of John Fox.
Yeah.
And because of what they're doing there.
I can agree with that. The other big news, Alshon Jeffery, touchdown.
Hey, I remember him.
Now, I thought we were having one of those moments that is just a tiny snapshot of the season when Jay Cutler, pinpoint accuracy, nailed Alshon Jeffery in the back of the head with the football, which was by far the best moment of the entire game when Alshon Jeffery's breaking deep, doesn't even turn around, and just gets pelted. So, I mean, that was fantastic. But luckily for Alshon Jeffery owners, Xavier Rhodes had to, similar to the Josh Norman situation on A.J. Green, Xavier Rhodes had to exit for a couple plays and
boom, touchdown.
And Cutler took advantage. And Alshon's in the end zone.
This is why after last week we recommended trading for Alshon Jeffery because we knew it was going to rush Cutler back. And when Cutler is there, Jeffery is a top wide receiver option. Unfortunately, now that all this greatness has come together, they're on bye.
Yeah, so it's Tuesday, and Tuesday means waiver wire. That's what we're covering on the show today, all the big waiver wire names. We also have our full stream ahead segment giving you a quarterback option. Now,
get ready, America.
Look, you need it. You need it because this week you have Brady and Palmer and Cousins and Dalton on bye. And so you're going to need one of those surprise quarterback streamers, whether you like it or not. Whether you
And
like
you're not
going
to like it. You're not going to like
No.
it. When all of those quarterbacks are on bye, you don't like the options you are left with. The only solace you have is that if anyone else is streaming, they also have garbage options to choose from.
Well, we're giving you our best three.
Yep.
We're giving you our best three options. So if you want to follow the show, you can do it on Twitter at the FF Ballers. That's where you can also catch Mike on his weekly Periscope on Sunday mornings. Check us out on YouTube. Check out those costumes from yesterday.
Ooh.
I'm convinced that I could have done the show on Skype and you just put a mannequin there with the hair. I didn't move for half the episode. It was entertaining. We're also on the Fantasy Sports Network. Check out the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, and our community at jointhefoot.com. Here's the quick question for the day, guys. We're playing another game of Who Am I?
Ooh.
Which is always fun about the midpoint of the season to kind of see where we stand, where we thought we were going. Clue number 1, all right? Here we go. Who am I? I am the wide receiver 11 in half-point scoring, which is one spot above Odell Beckham Jr.
Okay.
All right, that's
So
hit number
on
1.
On the season, he's
On
number
the
11.
season.
Okay.
I am 17th in receiving yards,
Hmm.
over almost 400 yards behind the league leader, A.J. Green. All right?
Okay. So that leads me to
so
think
he's a
that
touchdown.
We're getting touchdowns
There
here.
you go. There you go. Of the wide receiver ones, only 4 of us, including me, have done it in 7 games instead of 8
I have my guess.
because
I
no bye yet,
Oh, really?
right? 7.
Wait.
I'm sorry.
They
Has
had
had
the
the
bye.
bye.
Yeah.
So 7
Yeah, I got
games instead of
my
8.
guess.
I had my guess.
Let's hear the guess before I give you 4 and 5.
My guess would be Horty Nelson.
That's my guess as well.
You are incorrect. We're moving on.
All right.
You're both wrong. I'm tied for the lowest number of catches among wide receiver ones with 36. 36 catches.
Okay. And
And I'm going to give you one more.
Okay.
I'm super fast.
Oh, okay.
I'm super duper fast.
I got it.
Okay. Well, it's not Larry Fitzgerald.
It's not Larry Fitzgerald.
Well, he's up near the top. It's clearly got to be Brandon Cooks.
It's Brandon Cooks, wide receiver 11 right now, but only almost 400 yards behind A.J. Green. Very dependent on the big play thus far, but still in that wide receiver 1.
He's in the wide receiver 1 that doesn't always help you and oftentimes hurts your
like
team.
like a new G-Jack.
I mean, yeah, exactly. He's not a very helpful. Nobody who has Brandon Cooks is just really happy where they drafted him. I think.
You think? You don't think they're happy?
I would rather have had in my starting roster week in, week out Michael Crabtree than Brandon Cooks.
If I was trying to stock my roster with 2, I would like Brandon Cooks as my wide receiver 2, is what I'm saying. He's the
Sure.
perfect 2. I
Yes.
know. I realize he's just barely in the 1 category, but he's a great compliment because he can give you a boom week if you have a steady option. Like, would you like Crabtree and Cooks?
I would. Yeah, I mean that would be a nice combination.
All right.
Because if those were my top 2 guys, I probably have some nice studly running backs with them.
Okay. You guys want to get into the news? You have anything else you want to say about the game last night?
Nope.
News and notes from around the league.
Oh, I thought of something. If you're going to stream a defense against Minnesota, that's not a terrible idea.
Stream of defense. Oh, yeah.
That
Yep.
offensive line is in shambles.
Yeah, they don't have a lot. I mean, if you just think about it and you watch the games, what do? You don't have Jared McKinnon out there right now. Even if you did, I
They
mean,
weren't
what?
running well anyways.
How is Asiata and Diggs going to destroy your team?
They are a defense and running team that cannot run the ball. And so they're literally just a defense team, and those don't get the job done.
Yeah, that is. You're right, Mike. You should stream a defense against Minnesota's offense right now. All right, the Bucks. The Bucks signed Mike James from the Lions practice squad, former Buccaneer.
He's
Mike
back.
James.
That means Jacquizz is for sure not going to play.
Yeah, I mean, you got a Thursday night game. He's in a walking boot. Who do you start in Tampa? If you need a flyer, if you need a Thursday night start, is it Peyton Barber? Is it Anton Smith? Is it Mike James?
It's definitely not Mike James. It's going to be between Anton Smith and Peyton Barber, but it is a situation out there. You had Anton Smith who outsnapped Barber vastly. He outtouched him 5-1. When Jacquizz went down, it was Anton Smith. But Smith is quite a bit older and very small for a running back. You're talking a guy who's 3 inches taller than Jacquizz, but 15 pounds less than him. So he's a scat back. Is what
Anton Smith has always been that scat back role, the pass catching role. So I think you're going to see these guys both play, both be involved. Anton Smith be more utilized in the passing game. I would rather, if I had to start one, I would rather start Anton Smith.
I'm with you. I would rather start Anton Smith as well. All right.
And you always have the chance at the 80-yard touchdown reception with Anton Smith.
Yes, you do.
Remember when he did that like 3 games in a row?
Yep.
Back in the day.
Falcons running back Tevin Coleman is a game-time decision on Thursday. Did not practice on Monday. I am definitely leaning on the out side.
But
of
that's at least positive news
Sure.
that by next week he could be back.
Titans say DeMarco Murray's MRI came back, quote, good for the most part.
What is that other part?
This little piggy went to market. This little piggy came home. This little piggy's good for the most part.
And this little piggy, we're not going to talk about that little piggy.
We're not going to.
This little piggy is called go make sure you have Derrick Henry.
That little guy?
You've been talking. I give
wouldn't
you
worry
credit.
about that little guy.
I don't think you can get Derrick Henry easy now, but you told people to do it 2 weeks ago, so hopefully they listened.
Yes.
Hopefully they listened. Packers released Knile Davis.
Goodbye.
The Packers made a very smart trade for Knile Davis because they didn't owe anything for him unless he played a certain amount of snaps, and they just needed him to fill in a roster spot until – I mean, hopefully this means James Starks is closer than we think.
Hey, but that's all right because Kansas City – they needed a running back, and so now that Knile Davis has been released, they can
grab him.
They can sign Knile Davis.
They signed Bishop Sankey instead.
Sorry, Knile.
Yeah, the Chiefs signed Bishop Sankey. I think this is an indictment on the status of both Spencer Ware and the future of Jamal Charles this season. Because you don't go out. I mean, you don't go out and sign. That's almost the best indication of a status.
Is.
Something's wrong. I doubt Ware plays, which makes Char West one of our headline waiver wire guys today. But this signing means that maybe things aren't going in the right direction for Jamal Charles and his knees, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
Because there aren't too many guys I have more respect for than Jamal Charles in the NFL. So it's unfortunate to see his body break down because his talent is incredible. All right. Thomas Rawls already ruled out for week number 9, so we're going to have to wait longer for Mr. Rawls.
Probably at least a few weeks still.
Cody Kessler, fully cleared to play. The Browns have not named a starter.
I can tell you right now, my stream of the week would have been Josh McCown
if you knew he was starting.
If I knew he was starting. And really, I mean, let's be honest. If Cody Kessler starts, Josh McCown will be in about 3 minutes when Cody Kessler gets injured because all Browns starting quarterbacks get injured. It's what they do.
Do you know what Terrell Pryor's average depth of target was this past week with Josh McCown?
I do not.
Well, let's put it this way. Out of the top 10 targeted players this week, Pryor was number 8. Okay?
For depth of target?
No, he was number 8 in total targets, 13 targets. Average depth of target, 19.77 yards.
19 on that many targets?
Let me give you perspective.
I love Josh McCown. I love him.
The next highest was Dez at 16.98 and then A.J. Green, as opposed to Davante Adams. Do you know what his average depth of target was?
-5.
4.5. So Terrell Pryor, shots down the field, really torched Darrelle Revis until they started giving Revis help in that game. So we all want McCown. I feel like there should be a petition for Josh McCown in the fantasy community.
Yeah, the fantasy players do. The Browns need to start Cody Kessler.
Yeah, the Browns worry that if McCown's in there, they might win a game.
Yeah, Corey Coleman cleared to practice in full. So he's another guy we'll talk about in the waiver segment. And then Ty Montgomery, the surprise, quote, illness that kept him out was related to a sickle cell trait, the same thing that John Brown's dealing with. And so he hopes to play this week, but you need to monitor it. Might not happen. You saw Brown miss a week. And so Montgomery is going to be on the fence of getting back in here.
I think you saw Brown miss 1 week, and then he was able to get it, taken care of enough to start. You already have Ty Montgomery having missed a week. I think he'll be ready to play this following week.
Okay. All right. We got Bruce Arians naming J.J. Nelson as a starter.
Skeletor.
For the Cardinals.
They are on bye.
Kind of a strange thing to do, in my opinion. You're heading into a bye and you just come out and say, hey, he's a starter. I think it's
He's been great.
He actually
He has deserved. I believe he deserves to be in that role.
He said this news while staring locked eyes with Michael Floyd. This wasn't an announcement.
Hey,
Who does Michael Floyd?
Start with, hey, Mike, look at me.
Mike.
Mike, look at my eyes.
Dumpty.
J.J. Nelson is the starter.
Yeah.
And
What is he? He's like a toothpick.
J.J.
No,
Nelson, yeah.
Ron-
He's a very fast toothpick.
Ron Wolfley literally calls him Skeletor.
Does he?
Yeah.
Well,
So we need to get that going.
who does Michael Floyd play for next year?
Ooh.
It's a great question.
Not the Cardinals. Hashtag
No,
not the Cardinals.
It's definitely not the Cardinals.
I don't think it's definitely not the Cardinals. I
No.
put it 50-50.
Okay, let's move on. Jacob Tamme out for Week 9. Austin Hooper.
Austin Hooper has flashed. He's got some talent.
Has he missed? I think he's 12 for 12. Is he on the year as far as targets, receptions?
Wasn't he on Sesame
I'm
Street?
not sure.
Wasn't that
Austin Hooper?
Mr. Hooper? Wasn't it Mr. Hooper?
I don't know.
You could take that to the bank. I remember my childhood.
Oh, but the big news.
We alluded to it.
of the day. Oh, man. Look, over the last few years, Andy Holloway's had a couple of guys that he's just loved. Arian Foster. We know about Arian Foster, right? But back in the day, for that one Magic season,
half a season.
For that one Magic half a season, it was called, it was predicted, it was wonderful. He had him. As Mr. Percy Harvin, Andy, I have big news for you.
Oh, no.
Percy Harvin is back in the NFL. He has signed with your Buffalo Bills.
It's probably
You go number one waiver claim, right?
No, not exactly. But he has to be better than the Walt Powell, Justin Hunter experiment going on in Buffalo. So they need wide receivers.
I just saw a funny tweet that's making the rounds. And, as a parent, you're concerned about what is inside the bag, the Halloween goodie bag of your kids. The tall tales, the myths. You have the apples with the poison or the razor blades in here.
Delicious.
Well, someone had tweeted out, there's parents, check your kids' bags. I just found Cleveland Browns tickets in my kid's bag.
Oh, no.
Whoa, poison.
Danger. Found Cleveland
Poor
Browns
Browns.
tickets. Well, all right. We're going to get into the waivers, chat about all of the guys that we kind of consider headline. This is a tough week. Let's put it that way. This is a tough week for a lot of reasons. Your waivers, in part, are a reaction to injuries. In part, are a reaction to bye weeks. And in part, some of these guys on waivers are on bye. So how much do you spend for guys that are on their bye in the upcoming week but still have value for rest of season? We're going to get into all of that right now.
Put me in, coach.
A reminder, the bye weeks: Arizona, Chicago, Cincinnati, Houston, New England, and Washington. It's far-reaching. It probably impacts your team. I know it impacts mine. I have several rosters that I pulled open this morning and had like 5 or 6 guys on bye. And so, Kenneth Dixon's in a starting lineup for me right now before the waivers go through, among other players. Somebody asked me on the radio this morning. I went on a show, and he said, look, I'm 5-5. I'm a 500 team.
He's 5-5?
That's incredible.
Wait, sorry. I'm a 500 team, not 5-5.
Did you say that's literally impossible, sir?
Yeah,
He coulda had
and
a
then I
bye
hung up.
They play preseason fantasy.
All right.
They coulda had a
500
bye-
is what I meant.
a
He's
bye
a
week.
500 team. Are we good?
Yeah.
I would
Are you
like
okay,
this-
Mike?
I want this joke to keep going.
500 team wants to know if he should punt the week or because, dropping all these bye week guys, you have to drop players to sign players.
Right.
And wanted to know if he, kind of punts the week because his rest of the season prognosis is better. And my advice to him, and I'll see if you guys agree with this.
Yeah, because I got my answer.
My advice is no.
Yeah.
Obviously no. And the reason being is you are wrong when you say my rest of season is set up to go because too many variables are in place. Last week, if you said my rest of season set up with Mark Ingram, you would have been right. This week, you would have been wrong. Too many things can happen.
You have to
You
win
play
now.
for the week. And what I told him too, and here's a strategy for players. This can be the time of year where you work a trade that allows you to skip a bye week and give you an advantage.
Yes.
Because if you trade for a guy that's already passed their bye with a player that's either on bye this week or going on bye in the next few weeks, which is more ideal for the trade, then you skip a bye week. You set yourself up to take advantage of teams that do have byes, because you're going to be playing the David Johnson owner this week without David Johnson. You're going to be playing some of these matchups. And so I think it's a good this is kind of a strategic apex for your season, these 2 bye weeks where trades and the way that you think about winning these weeks really matters.
Yeah, and I completely agree with this, and I think it can go both ways. Let's say you're crushing it. You're undefeated. Maybe this is a situation where the 500 team has a David Johnson. You can, as Jason says, withstand that victory. Go grab David Johnson for cheaper than you possibly can because this other team has to get a win. So it goes both ways.
You're right.
These are situations you need to be looking for. So before we jump into the waiver wire,
it's a long list,
Would like to thank today's sponsor, Avast. We are talking about the global leader in digital security, protecting you online against cyber threats. This is not a city, not county, not country. Global leader, people. Avast, they're thinking big. We all play games on PCs, and we know there's people out there, they're trying to get my passwords, they're trying to get into my stuffs. I'm out there, I'm looking for mods, I got to get my add-ons for my WoW. And sometimes I'm not too sure if a website is on the up and up, but I know that Avast has my system protected, along with more than 400 million people trusting Avast to their PCs, their laptops. Look, your banks, they have a vault door. They don't just leave things open for people to come and take what they want, and your laptops should be protected by Avast. Their products are lightweight. They keep you safe, and they keep you going at full speed. They're not bogging down your system, and they're staying up to date on all the latest threats on people who are trying to sneak in your phones. You know what, people? Avast is keeping your phone safe as well. Your PCs, your Macs, your mobile phones, your laptops, everything and more. If you want more information, head over to avast.com. That's AVAST.com.
And we'd also like to thank Pristine Auction. Look, you've heard us talk about Pristine Auction time and time again. The reason is because they are the best and the only place to get awesome signed sports memorabilia. I was just thinking about what a time this is right now. If you're a baseball fan, right? You like the Cubs, you like the Indians. What a world you're living in. Those are the times where you go to Pristine Auction and you grab an incredible signed framed jersey or hat or game-worn gloves. There's just so much cool stuff over there. If you know a Cubs fan or a Cleveland Indians fan or a Cleveland Browns fan, right? Get them something from the Indians to give them hope. And say, hey, I know you're a Browns fan, so I got you these signed gloves from the Cleveland Indians because there is still goodness in your city. Look, Pristine Auction, it's amazing what they have over there. We're on it every single day.
It's kind of in our DNA.
I was on it yesterday.
Fans.
Came out with another victory, my friends.
What'd you land?
Odell Beckham
You did?
Jr.
Very
Did you get it for the show, or is this yours?
To be determined.
To be determined.
It is for the show, Mike. How dare you?
Oh, my goodness.
Look,
And you know what? At a great price.
That's awesome.
At a great price.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so you got to check it out. Sometimes they're cheaper than you can even fathom. Go make your bids. It's free to bid. And when you go there, tell them that the fantasy footballers
make your free account and let them know.
It's PRISTINE auction.com.
All right, let's go ahead and chat about some wide receiver options on the waiver wire. Do you guys want to start with running backs?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's
start with running backs because, as we said, premium position, something that you're going to be higher demand. You can find a waiver wire wide receiver easier. So let's start with the running back. The headliner for me is Char West. Char West is owned in basically no leagues. He's the guy that's going to step into that role on an Andy Reid offense if, Charles we know is going to be out. Spencer Ware's got the concussion. And Char West, look, he doesn't look like Spencer Ware on the field, but he's averaging 4.2 a carry this year. He can step into that role. We saw it last year. He was a savior for teams last year. I think he's the guy facing Jacksonville who has their share of problems. He's the guy to own this week.
Here's the deal with Char West. Before Spencer Ware existed, was even a thought or a figment in your brain. Last year, it was Char West who came out the gates. He had 3 games of over 20 carries. And you know what? One of those games against Denver, and here's what he did. His yards per carry was not great. However, 69 yards and a touchdown. Oh, let me throw in 92 receiving yards and a touchdown against Denver.
Charizard.
In Denver. And Denver was great last year. So, look, Char West can get it done. The Kansas City Chiefs just have a great scheme. Andy Reid knows how to maximize running backs. So if you are in a situation, you need to buy yourself a win. You need to buy a replacement for your roster this week. It's, for me, as of right now, it's Char West.
Yeah, I think we all agree that Char West is probably the best pickup to play this week. There is a little bit of a gamble here.
Yeah, there is. This is not without risk.
Because should Spencer Ware be cleared from the concussion protocol, then he'll be, mixed in. He will still have some value. So it's not like, a lot of times people are out there saying, okay, my waivers are just empty. My running, I have Lamar Miller and David Johnson, and they're on bye. So I've got to plug in someone. Charizard would be probably our number one recommendation. There's other guys. We talked a little bit about Antone Smith and Peyton Barber. Those are startable assets.
Here's a guy to pay attention to for me.
As a startable asset this week?
Well, as a startable, I was actually going a different direction. So do you want to talk about a couple more of those guys first?
I think if we group together, because some players are really saying, I got to have someone to start. Who else?
DuJuan Harris.
Yes.
DuJuan Harris for San Francisco.
If Carlos Hyde.
If Carlos Hyde is out again, the kind of narrative had been Mike Davis.
But Andy, it's Mike Davis and the big salad.
Yeah, it's not. Voice of public opinion. Go look at last week, and it was DuJuan Harris.
Yeah, and he looked good. He looked like he gained the trust of Chip Kelly.
Here's a guy that you can pick up and you can play him this week. I am not too proud to admit this, but Darren Sproles is a great pickup. He's available in nearly half of leagues. My love for Ryan Matthews is not carried on in Philadelphia. The breaking news yesterday was Doug Peterson's going to take a look at, and he might name Darren Sproles the number one running back.
Your face says exactly what I thought.
He has been the number one running back on the team for weeks.
Yeah, but his words didn't back that up. Every week, you two hooligans would be back on the Ryan Matthews train because of the words of Doug Peterson.
I have not always been back on that train. How dare you? All right, another startable guy.
But just saying, he takes on the Giants. Look, if Darren Sproles is going to get the kind of work and the kind of snaps that he did last week, then he's a great starter.
Okay.
Another guy
breaks my heart.
You can grab. He's owned in about half of ESPN leagues, more available in Yahoo. Bilal Powell is a guy who should not be available. I don't think in most leagues.
Agreed.
He has done enough where most weeks he is serviceable. He's not going to go out there and get you a 0. He had 76 yards and a touchdown this last week on the ground. Usually he's been catching enough balls where if you're in a PPR league, he's valuable. He's out there.
Let me ask you this. Third most touches in the league this past week belonged to Tim Hightower. 26 rushes and a reception. He's going to be out there, and fantasy owners with Mark Ingram are freaking out. What does it look like? What is the prognosis for Hightower, and how do you feel like specifically this week with a great matchup against San Francisco, could you flex? Could you start Hightower? Could you play both players because they'll both be involved? How do you think that's going to break down? I have my thoughts, but I want to hear your guys's.
My thoughts are that it will be where you can play both players. The San Francisco 49ers have been so bad against running backs that I think you're going to see good production from both guys. Tim Hightower earned touches. This last week, according to Sean Payton, he liked what he saw. But he's liked what he's seen every time that Tim Hightower's had the opportunity, even going back to last year.
According to Sean Payton, was the best proclaimer in that sentence.
I know that he was under 4 yards a carry and that there was some stuff that you don't like, but he was also over 100 yards on the ground against Seattle's very tough run defense that hasn't made anyone look good. So I actually will put myself in Sean Payton's camp. I think if you need to start Tim Hightower this week, you're going to be fine. And honestly, if you look back a couple of years,
is he the better sign than West if you're looking for something long term?
Yeah, because he's still a great handcuff should anything happen to Ingram.
The interesting thing about Hightower and his quote-unquote production last week, obviously the volume was there, the production was there. He had multiple opportunities on the goal line and couldn't get in. Eventually, Breeze got in on one of them. On the other possession, I don't think they scored. So you have to imagine Ingram, if Peyton comes out they spent money on Ingram. They have a large investment on Ingram. And they've been very encouraging about what happened. And what's amazing about the fumble, too, is it was not – I think Peyton even came out and said this wasn't necessarily his fault.
But he deserved to be benched the whole game.
No, he said he didn't plan to bench him the whole game, but he felt like he couldn't take Tim Hightower out. That's why I'm saying going forward, he's earned a workload. And if you look back at previous years, you've got Kyrie Robinson coming in as a touchdown vulture over and over and over. Mark Ingram gets you down to the goal line, and for some reason, oftentimes they took him out.
Yeah, John Kuhn.
Right.
Here's something you'll like this analogy, Mike. If I could remember his name, I would say it. Saw it on the Fantasy Sports Network interview this morning. These guys are not puppies being trained. Mark Ingram knows that fumbling is bad.
Yeah. Oh,
right.
Yes.
Because that's kind of your mindset. Is you're like, these are not little puppies or kids that are getting trained. To go potty.
They understand the rules of football and the strategy of football, that if I fumble, it's very bad for my team. we got to make sure he knows that you cannot fumble.
Will they break the dunce cap out? If you get
Put
to
him in the corner?
Because I think Stephen Ridley's the only one that's ever received the dunce cap and actually been in the corner. Here's some guys that are on bye this week that you should pay attention to as well. Dion Lewis with James White and his lack of production. I actually see a pathway now to Dion Lewis being more valuable than I thought he would be because White hasn't been.
It's all about his health, though.
It is all about his health. Robert Kelly and his potential to kind of own the backfield in Washington, it's not necessarily a high probability, but the possibility of a starting running back, needs to be paid attention to. They're on bye this week as well.
And if you can stash him, he's going to be cheaper this week than next week.
I also think James Starks is a stash.
I was going to say
you must make.
And two other stashes. Starks is definitely a good one. Alfred Morris is available in most leagues still. He shouldn't be.
Is that like a Robert? Is that like a Tom Selleck stash? Like, is that the level of stash?
It's a real nice stash because
I mean he's an incredible handcuff. We have all just the weird stuff floating out there on Elliott with his domestic abuse.
I don't
case.
expect anything's going to happen, but
there's rumblings in the bushes about maybe a suspension.
Without that, he's still a good guy to have on your team. Derrick Henry somehow is still available in over 50% of leagues.
Come on.
I've checked every single league I'm in. He's not available in any of them, but according to ESPN and Yahoo, he's available in more than 50% of leagues. Grab him for sure. And then I'll throw out one other name. If you're listening, you're like, man, all these guys are gone. I have to play someone this week. I'm going to the garbage dumpster.
What?
And I know you guys might disagree. I'm going to throw out Damien Williams. I
do disagree.
From the Miami Dolphins. Watching the last few games, Jay Ajayi's the guy.
You didn't have to watch the whole game to see Williams. You just had to watch like 4 plays.
But Damien Williams has been productive over the last month, and that was with Arian Foster.
Was incredible.
That was with Arian Foster playing a quarter of their snaps. Arian Foster is retired. I think Damien Williams will be used in. And if you have to, if you're going like, okay, would you Teron Ward?
Oh, come on.
No,
I'd start him over Teron Ward.
Okay, well, there you go.
Well, I'd even start him over Taron Ward.
I'm just saying there are people that need the deeper options,
we're
here for you.
Then those people need to look at CJ Procise.
Oh, absolutely.
Over 100 yards total last week. I know a lot of it came on a
Spiller is gone.
Yeah, CJ Spiller's gone. Procise is healthy. Thomas Rawls is still in neutral for the foreseeable future. And so Procise workload is going to go up.
Absolutely. I agree with you guys. Let's talk about some wide receiver options. There were, Donte Moncrief comes to mind right away because even though he's owned in over 50% of leagues, we have to mention him at the headline there because he played on 89.4% of snaps, 4 for 41 and a touchdown in a game where the Chiefs handled them pretty well. So it wasn't.
And there was this not in the box score, a 45-yard touchdown to Donte Moncrief that got called back on a hold.
They don't put those in the box score.
No.
I wish they would.
Since last year, with Andrew Luck, Donte Moncrief averages over 13 PPR points a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's probably not available, but look, and if he is, you must pick him up.
Guys that are more available, Kendall Wright had his second good game out of the past 3. He's certainly the guy that Mariota loves and prefers, I still think he's frightening to own.
You can see that fantasy owners did not believe in that performance, as he is owned in under 7%.
Well, I'm sure it dropped right back down because he's like a yo-yo. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I almost bought him and started him. I didn't, thankfully, and he stunk. But, he looked good this past week. He's on the waiver wire in almost every league, and with bye weeks and things like that, you could do worse than Kendall Wright. Quincy Enunwa showing me something in the absence of Decker in a consistency
all year he's
basis.
been good. All year he has been a startable asset, and I expect at the end of the year he's going to finish no lower than a wide receiver 3, and he might sneak up into that wide receiver 2 territory, so he should most certainly be picked up. Another guy who's available in half leagues that we've forgotten about and should be picked up, I think that's Steve Smith.
Senor.
He was rested. He was coming off of the bye week. Whenever guys are coming off of a bye who were injured going into the bye, you just forget about them. You're like, who?
Right.
So I would pick him up. If he plays this week, he's going to be a great start.
Yeah, because he's somebody that if you wanted to sign him last week, you really couldn't because you needed to fill your roster out with somebody that was playing. So he's definitely somebody that sneaks up on you. If for some reason Davante Adams is available, I can't speak highly enough of his target share right now. He's been great for and who knows, with Montgomery and Cobb over the next few weeks, with what Aaron Rodgers is doing, he seems to have earned the trust of Aaron Rodgers with 12 catches on 14 targets. I mean, that's just an incredibly high efficiency rate. I know the passes were short, but pretty impressive. Some other guys worth mentioning, Andrew Hawkins and Tyreek Hill were two of the biggest outperformers from their projections this past week.
No. Andrew Hawkins, eat it. Corey Coleman's back.
Yeah.
Corey Coleman is at practice, and that's who I would pick up.
Do you have a shirt, like a Corey Coleman shirt or a tattoo, or what in the world is getting
I'm
into
getting
you?
them printed up. I got a box of 250.
Why do you
coming.
like Corey Coleman so much?
Because I think he is an extremely
elite
talented
athlete.
guy. When he played with Josh McCown, the only game where basically both of them started and finished the game, he was, I think, like the third
great.
best wide receiver in the league.
So one game, you're
Well,
set
he's
up.
been injured the whole year. Yeah, I mean,
And
I'm
he's
just
not,
saying,
and McCown's probably not going to be in there.
And
I'm just saying the talent is there,
I
and he's
agree with this.
available.
Here's the problem. Are you starting Corey Coleman over Terrell Pryor?
No.
Are you flexing Corey Coleman over Gary Barnage?
Yeah.
You would? You would play Corey Coleman first week back over Barnage?
No, not first week back.
Okay.
I'm just saying eventually I think I will.
But if he has a big week, then he's going to cost you a buttload next week.
I will agree that the potential for something to come for Coleman is there. I just it's tough with that offense and with Kessler and with what Pryor's doing in the offense.
I would say a couple more
But
names.
long-term, dynasty, anything like that, you have to own him.
J.J. Nelson, the aforementioned, into the starting role. He's on bye this week, but Skeletor could be.
That's normally how you can grab a guy, too.
Yes. He could be great for your fantasy teams. And look, Sammy Coates, he's had some time to rest that broken finger, the laceration. Big Ben is back in practice. That's the bigger news for Sammy Coates, in my opinion. And he was dropped in a lot of leagues. He's available in over 50% of them. So I think it's time to pick him back up and see what he can do.
And there's a good spot start matchup here again for Mohamed Sanu. He went 9 for 84 and a touchdown last week, plays Tampa Bay this week. I think you could do worse than having to throw him in.
I agree with that. And if Julio is limited by an ankle injury again, you could stumble into some great production.
Yep.
At the tight end position, give me some names. There are people with Rob Gronkowski on bye this week. Tyler Eifert on bye this week after the big performance. So, is Zach Miller on bye? Fedorowicz on bye? Jordan Reed on bye? This is a week where you need a tight end.
This is a problem.
So, give me your favorite.
Eric Ebron is the headliner. He's back. Another game of 10 targets, 7 for 79. He is involved in the offense. If he's going to play, you can count on him for some decent yardage. He's not one of these tight ends like Julius Thomas, right? He's getting 2 or 3 receptions a game. You hope that he scores. Well, with Ebron, of course, you hope he scores, but you know that if he doesn't, he won't just put up an absolute crap fest for fantasy scoring. So he's my number one guy. CJ Fedorowicz, Fedora hat guy. He's on bye, but he's jumping up here into a startable tight end.
Yeah,
one.
but you're not going to grab Fedorowicz going into a bye, are you?
No, you're not.
No, unlikely.
yeah.
But you need to remember him.
The guy that I would grab would be Cameron Brate. Cameron Brate has been a disappointment to me.
Fool me once.
Yeah.
Fool me twice.
He's been a disappointment.
Fool me thrice.
He hasn't been as involved as he was those first few weeks. He did get a touchdown last week. Still only caught 3 balls. But I think the combination of the fact that he's had a handful of quality fantasy producing games, a handful, matched with he's got just a delightful matchup this week against Atlanta, who is terrible against tight end. I would, if you've got to start one, I would throw him out there. In the same game,
I'll say Brate versus Hooper.
Oh, I was going to say in the same
Austin
game,
Hooper needs to be brought
I like
up.
Austin Hooper quite a lot, and he's available in 100%.
I've got a pretty big name that I want your opinion on.
All right.
This player had no limitations on his return to practice on Tuesday. And his name's Ladarius Green.
I thought that's where you were going.
Yeah.
Ladarius Green off the bye, no limitations.
That's a danger, man. That's
it is
that's
dangerous,
a risky
but
play.
That's
But if-
high reward.
But
though.
would you play Hooper or Green
I would play Hooper.
over Green?
Yeah, I would.
Because Jacob Tammy's going to be out, so Hooper's a streaming starter
Hooper's
tight
shown
end.
me some flashes where he's been really a quality tight end. Obviously, he was drafted to be that. He was that way in college. And while I don't usually like rookie tight ends, because Tamme is out, he's thrust into a role in a good matchup where I guess I just trust it a little bit more than all the weirdness that's gone on with Green over the offseason. Is it an ankle? Is it a head? And now he's back. And if he comes out and drops 2 touchdowns, I won't be surprised. If he comes out and blocks for 5 plays and just gets kind of his feet wet, I wouldn't be surprised.
Let's say Green is by far the better long-term pickup. Hooper,
Yes.
this is a spot start. Jacob Tammy's going to be back, and Hooper will be back on the bench.
The nice thing about Green as a flyer is the bouncing around of secondary targets behind Antonio Brown is
Jesse James has been solid for
I know,
fantasy.
but it's just been I'm just saying even Wheaton and Hayward Bay and the depth chart changes and Coates injuries and I just think that there are opportunities there for that offense. Let's talk about some defensive streaming starters before we get into our streaming quarterback options and waiver wire quarterback options. So who do you think you can throw out there this week as a defense and see production that'll impact your fantasy team?
Cowboys. Look, I'm taking on Cleveland again. It didn't work out extremely well for the Jets, but the Cowboys as a unit are much better than the Jets as an entire defense. So I'm going with them against Cody Kessler. I think that they're a great stream, and in Yahoo leagues, they're available in about 85%. So, I mean, they're widely available.
What about that Falcons defense against the sometimes mistake-prone Jameis Winston? Or do you stay away from this game because you worry about
I think it's going to be a high-scoring game personally, so I would be a little bit worried about it.
buying into the Panthers' rejuvenation on the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, they're not widely available, but I like them. I threw them on just in case they were. I picked them up, and I stashed them over the Cardinals week, and they're going to take on the Rams, which could be taking on Jared Goff in his first start.
You think that's going to happen?
It's a possibility.
Yeah.
You know what defense I might throw out there if you're just really going low.
Yeah, I aim for low.
The 20th ranked defense this year, fantasy-wise. The Miami Dolphins are at home against the Jets.
Yeah.
I wanted to stream Ryan Fitzpatrick this week again, but I just can't do it because he has looked so bad. And he didn't throw an interception last week, but I think part of
He
that.
tried.
Part of the reason he didn't throw an interception last week was because he was throwing the ball too poor. If he had thrown just a normal bad ball, the defenders had a chance to intercept it. But there was just no defenders around, no offensive guys around.
And we had talked about, or I brought up, streaming against Minnesota. Are we willing to stream the Detroit Lions?
No, I'm not.
Divisional
personally.
game?
Yeah.
Where's that game at? Minnesota?
It's in Minnesota.
Then no.
Okay.
No, I don't think so.
Full stream ahead.
I'll just throw out one more. The Chargers. Since they've had Joey Bosa, they've looked really good. Tennessee Titans
Oh, that's a good one.
are
That is a good one.
A decent matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let's give our quarterback streams of the week. Look, when we give you these names, it's a thin week, but we're looking for that 202 level production. Somebody that you can put in there and get a baseline of production with upside so that your team is not destroyed by a bye week or destroyed by a bad matchup. So
if you are on your lunch break, put it down.
yeah, you might not want to eat.
Do not be chewing.
No.
If you have a
This is our
hazmat
most-
suit or an apron of just something
Yeah.
that can protect your clothing, put it on.
It's basically like the swimming rule. If you've eaten within 30 minutes, just pause it. Okay, pause it right here and then come back and listen. We don't want you to.
If you've had diarrhea in the last month, then just skip this section altogether.
Now, before we get to those, we've been talking waiver wires. Now we're talking about people when we stream that are available in most leagues. Guys that are available in a lot of leagues that don't qualify that would be just great waiver pickups. Look, if Jameis Winston is out there, you need to pick him up. Jameis Winston should be owned in 100% of smart leagues because Jameis Winston's schedule is great. He has been performing. This week is at Atlanta, so pick him up. He's still available in like 30% of leagues. Also, Dak Prescott plays the Browns. That's great. He's another guy I would pick up, but they don't qualify for how low we have to go here.
You want to know what's amazing about Winston is that I don't know if there's a quarterback in the league more dependent on their top-tier wide receiver for their value. Like if Mike Evans was out, I don't think that I wouldn't touch Jameis Winston with a 10-foot pole.
Well,
Mike Evans,
he produced without Mike Evans.
I was going to say Mike Evans this last week was in the poopy pants.
What do you mean without Mike Evans?
Evans had a very poor game.
Yeah, but Evans changes everything on the defense. Okay. I mean, if he's on the field, they're doubling Mike Evans, so it's not his production. I'm saying if you take away that top-tier guy, and all of a sudden you're throwing to Humphreys and Shepard and Brait,
I'm bailing out.
I'm bailing out big time.
Yes.
So here's our streams of the week. I don't know if we've had a group of 3 names more terrifying than the group this week, but let's put it. Look, these have been working out this year. We're trying to give you that top 10, top 12 production. I'm just gonna get mine out of the way, guys.
Yeah.
It's Colin Kaepernick. I'm throwing Colin Kaepernick and his 8% ownership out there. He faces the New Orleans Saints at home, coming off the bye. Remember, Brady, Palmer, Cousins, Dalton, you're in tough straits. All right, dire straits. He could surprise you in this game. He's had 23 and 17 fantasy points in his 2 games. He moves the ball with his legs.
He's running, yeah.
And so I think you could do worse than Colin Kaepernick this week. The New Orleans Saints, their defense is far from flawless. You put them in San Francisco, I think there are opportunities here. I'm just going to throw that out there. Colin Kaepernick, my stream of the week.
All right, I guess I will go. I'll go next. This one will sound worse than I think it is.
Like that there was no comments whatsoever on Colin Kaepernick.
There's
That's
no
just
way.
Great.
The power of the afro hopefully comes through. All right, mine I think is going to seem worse than it actually is because we are fresh off of last night's debacle, and that is Sammy Biscuits. Sam Bradford is my guy. The last 2 weeks have left a very poor taste in your mouth because he's really
some dry old biscuits.
The biscuits are done, man.
Yes. So
got him.
You got me there. You got me there.
It's like I love biscuits.
The last 2 weeks have been really bad, but the thing is about the last 2 weeks, even though we don't respect Chicago the way that we should, their defense has been pretty good. He played at Philadelphia, who's great.
I respect them, by the way.
Well, sure. I'm saying the universal we. And at Chicago. Those are 2 tough matchups on the road where he hasn't performed that great. But the previous few games when he was at home against the Giants, at home against Houston, he put up good fantasy games. This week, he's at home against Detroit. So, to me, I think you could start Sammy
Detroit only
Biscuits.
plays 8 on D. Is that correct?
That's their secret.
That's their secret sauce. Okay, so Sammy Biscuits,
All right.
Jason's pick of the week here.
Sam Bradford.
Mike.
All right, I'm streaming Ryan Tannehill.
Oh, goodness.
At home against the New York Jets. Their secondary is very suspect. The Cleveland Browns and Josh McCown took care of them. Look, the Jets are allowing the lowest yardage, I should say, that they have allowed was 225 passing yards against Arizona in a game where Arizona didn't even need Carson Palmer. So there's 4 multi-touchdown games allowed by the Jets. Similar to Colin Kaepernick, Ryan Tannehill at home coming off of the bye week.
Here's a waiver pickup for you.
Kenny Stills.
Kenny Stills.
I agree completely.
This is a perfect Kenny Stills game. If you need a spot start and you want that glory play where it's like, dude, I played Kenny Stills against you. He could go off for 15
That's exactly
yards.
what Adam Gase says when he comes to the center field and talks to the other coach. He goes, I just played Kenny Stills. I just played Kenny Stills against you, and I won. No, I agree. Look, something's wrong with Darrelle Revis. There's talk today about him being cut after the season to save the $2 million roster bonus, not even having him.
You have to.
Not even having him do the rotation to safety like they're planning. He's getting torched down the field. I saw a stat today too. You know, last week Terrell Pryor, right? He had 13 targets and torched Revis in the first half. There were 100. He was the leader in the league on missed opportunity yards. So more targets down the field, more opportunities for him to be deep. 186 yards left on the field against Revis. I think that's why Jason brought up Kenny Stills, and that's why I agree with him, because those speed threats are torching the Jets' defense right now. So, yeah, Ryan Tannehill, Sammy Biscuits, and Colin Kaepernick. You can start eating again. We won't bring up those names again. And don't forget about Dak Prescott against the Browns, because, you know, it's the Browns. So that does it for today's podcast. A reminder, check out jointhefoot.com. Jointhefoot.com is our fantasy football community. Become an official Foot Clan supporter. Support this podcast. We're an independent, year-round fantasy football podcast, putting our heart and soul into doing this every single day. So if you want to get involved, join our community. There are over 3,000 of you that have faithfully supported this show as a listener and as a supporter on jointhefoot.com.
We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So check that out, and we will be back tomorrow. We have our 300th episode of the show coming up very soon. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun with that. It's kind of crazy that we're getting to 300 already, but thank you so much for listening, subscribing, and supporting this podcast, everything that you guys do for us. And we will be back tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you so much. Oh,
are we doing a Megalodon this month for Thanksgiving?
That remains to be seen. But
we
thank you so
will
much.
plan.
FantasyJocks.com,
Thanks a
promo
lot, Jay.
code Footballers. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.